Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well. Uh, it's Tuesday, so as you know, what we're gonna be breaking into some TV today. But on a positive note, no snowstorm. So that means no shoveling for Shamus or myself, or for all of you loyal listeners out there. And the guy that's joining me tonight, as he does every Tuesday, I know he's in a good mood. He's unlike Leon Draisaitl. He's not pissy right now. He's totally happy all the time. My co-host, as you guys all know him, Seamus Fillmore. Shay, how are things been through the first 4 or 5 days of lockdown? What is this, 5.0 now?
Feels like 72.0.
Yeah.
No, that's a false statement. I'm not always happy, Mr. Happy Go Lucky. But thanks for the compliment. No, I'm doing pretty good. Lockdown's been not enjoyable, but just getting through it. Watching a lot of shows, watching some great sports. Actually, I found especially this 2-week period has definitely carried me through a lot of my nights. So busy days and then kind of relax, watch sports, take it all in. So I've been really thankful for that more than I have been in the past lockdowns.
Yeah, especially when there was no sports. That was a tough time.
It's funny to think about that and think about you and how much that meant to you and how long it took, I guess, to get into a normal setting and even this weird bubble sports and whatever else they did, Disneyland, all that BS that we had to go through for a little while. But at least there's fans in the stands, and that's kind of all that really matters when you think about it.
Other than Canada, yeah.
Other than our great nation.
You watch football, there's 80,000-90,000 people, which you gotta love to see. But there's not much we can do. Just sit here. And
I got a question for you. I pretty popular video over the weekend of in Dallas and all the fans kind of swarming in. Does that mean they're not really testing anybody, or like do you get a test and then go into the stadium? I didn't understand that. Like, so they don't do any testing whatsoever.
As far as I know, in Dallas, they don't. And you don't have to be vaccinated to go in either.
Oh, okay.
It's like certain states has different rules. I know in like the Bay Area, you have to be fully vaccinated, and I think you can go. I don't think you have to test to go in, as far as I know. But Dallas being, a more, let's call it liberal state, I don't think they require you to be vaccinated. I don't think they test. So it's first come, first serve. It's, who can get in the door the fastest, I think, for old Jerry Jones and co.
Yeah, just gotta get that paycheck.
Yeah.
they rushed their own fate. So that's all I gotta say.
That was what a game that was on Sunday, and what a choke job. But I gotta ask before we start and talk about our new show. Rams win last night, which Stafford gets his first playoff win. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to Adam Beers, who's been fans of him forever, and he did nothing for his franchise. But kudos to Matty Staff. But I also got to ask you, there's a certain receiver who plays for the Rams who used to be a Cleveland Brown, and he caught a tub last night. He's going to the divisional playoff round, while little Baker Mayfield is like shooting another Progressive commercial. So what's your reaction to seeing Odell succeed in the postseason?
Not super happy about it. Actually, I usually don't get too salty about seeing others succeed, but no, when he caught that TD, I was kind of gave a swear word and then kind of looked away. But no, it's all good. I mean, he's a talented player still, and if he helps him win, I just hope he doesn't make it too much about himself, which he has a tendency of doing from time to time.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. No, that's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that you're okay with Odell succeeding. I know it's been a tough subject for you and Casey Ward. Guess you have such a hate on for the guy, but I just hope Baker's okay today. I hope he's okay, and he's collecting a good check, because we know he's not collecting any playoff game checks. So we know that one for sure. So last week we talked about El Camino. We wrapped up our Breaking Bad coverage. We went through the whole 5 seasons and the movie, and we discussed about what we're going to cover next. And we locked onto a Amazon show by the name of Sneaky Pete, which is it's 3 seasons in. I believe it's over now, but 3 seasons of a show means it's got a pretty good run. And we're going to talk about the first 2 episodes today. But first 2 episodes, Shay, the premise of the show, really, you talked about it last week, but I'll have a quick little rundown. Our main cat is named Marius, and he's in jail for, he's basically a con man. He tries to find rich people, he lures them in, and he steals their money. And he got caught. He messed with the wrong guy, a smarter individual, one might say, and he gets caught, putting his hand in the cookie jar. So Marius has to, we don't really know why he's in jail right away. We'll learn about that in episode 2, but he's in jail. He's in there, and his brother alerts him that it's not gonna be good for you when you get out of here. Like, you might get whacked if you can't come up with the money. So he starts talking to his cellmate, Pete, and he learns about his life, Shay, and he kind of takes it and becomes Pete. And so with all that being said, what were your thoughts on the first, grand scheme of things, the first 2 episodes of the show?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't groundbreaking. I wasn't like in awe, glued to my screen, but I thought it had some good parts, and I thought him in particular, Giovanni Risby, I think his name is, or Ribisi, did a really good job with his role, kind of as that kind of filthy, dirty con man that gets a bad premise, but he's also a really smart individual, and he's got a spectacular memory that we'll get into later. But for the show wise, I thought it was okay. It was maybe not the best thing I ever watched, but looking forward to the storyline, I guess, and some of the mysteries of some characters that have been mentioned, but we haven't seen on screen, and we don't know nothing about.
Right. Yeah. We texted about it last night. I thought the second episode was a lot better than the premiere, which is not something I normally say. Normally the premiere makes you kind of jump. Okay, I'm really invested in this. But I feel like they held off on too much information, which we did learn about in the second episode, which was good. But, I think you got to give us a little bit. We didn't really know why he was in jail, which was, he conned somebody, but that doesn't mean you're going to jail. You can, a lot of different ways that can go, as we've seen in movies and television. But I agree. I think Giovanni is very good at his role. Obviously Bryan Cranston is a part of the show, which just seems to be our theme. Somehow we'll be covering Malcolm in the Middle next. But he always finds his way into the show, and I really enjoy the role he's playing, because it's very counter to anything we've covered so far.
Yeah, plays the main villain, we'll say, in Vince Longgan, I guess, Vince Longgan. We only see a little bit of a glimpse of him in the first episode. We see a lot more of him in the second episode, and what he runs, and the system he runs. That's obviously Marius, who's trying to basically con him, take his money, and then probably run with it. We know Marius, like you said, has a brother, and his brother is clearly not as sharp, and maybe not as motivated as Marius. But he's still his brother, and kind of the reason why Marius has not taken off completely yet. But yeah, without further ado, I think we should get into it. Is there any final notes you thought? Anything? I mean, like you said, the premiere was good, but I thought the second episode was better. It almost felt like one long premiere. If you would have stuck 2 episodes together, it would have probably did the perfect episode.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of a Survivor premiere. I sometimes now it's basically every premiere is 2 hours, and it's so much better because you get to learn about all the different players. So I agree in that sense. You learn so much more about different people, and the first episode just kind of felt crammed together, and you didn't get a full picture of him or the family that he's entering, which isn't exactly, isn't exactly the Holderness
Perfect.
family. It's not
Yeah.
the perfect family. Um, so just yeah, we'll start. But Marius, basically, a little background on him, on our main character. He's a foster kid. His mother was a self-prescribed junkie by Marius. And we even see this scene where he has to give Eddy like a frozen meal. So clearly he was a parent of sorts from a young age to Eddy. He didn't have a normal upbringing, that's for sure. And we kind of start, he's in jail, and we see them walking in line, and we don't really know what's going on. And we just hear Pete talking about his life story, about how great it is, and the tire swing and the lake and all this. And Marius has just had enough with Pete and his boring life.
Yeah, he basically says, shut your trap, and I don't hear no more about your perfect childhood and your perfect life. Like, if yours was no better than mine. And Pete goes off on him, kind of grabs him, shoves him against the cell, and says, "Listen, just because you had a shitty childhood doesn't mean, you can be a prick to me." And then we kind of reveal that Marius is getting out of jail in a few days, or a day or so, and Pete is still stuck in jail for what seems like a number of years afterwards. And it's at this time, Marius, he's by himself. He gets a call, to check on his brother. His brother says, yeah, he basically asking, "Are you going to be there when I get out to pick me up?" And Eddy, his brother, he says, "No, like he said earlier, Vince, our main bad guy, is going to be there to get some guys there to basically whack you or take you away." And Marius knows he's in trouble. And, Eddy says, "Well, you got to get out. You got to get out of town, and you got to make yourself quiet for quite a while."
Yeah, so he does give him a tip. We see later he's not all that loyal to Marius, but in this case, he does give him the warning, and he says it's not going to be good for you when you get out. So Marius, he said he's a sharp cat, and he's kind of thinking, I can't go out and be Marius because I'm going to be caught in a New York Minute. Like they're going to find me. So instead, after this phone call, he has this change of heart. He goes back into the cell, and he looks at Pete, and he goes, I was a douchebag back there. And, why don't you just tell me? I want to hear everything about your childhood, all your cousins. You have 35 cousins. I want to hear about all of them. And he basically just starts taking notes inside his brain about this new life that he's gonna jump into.
Yeah, and for people listening, they're like, "Well, how are you going to go to this family?" Pete hasn't seen his family in over 20 years, so basically, since he was a teenager, they have no recollection of what he looks like or what he grew into, and nothing. It doesn't sound like he ever had contact with his family. So for a con artist who's trying to make a hidden escape, this is the perfect scenario for you to kind of slide in, just as a place for you to stay a while things kind of cool over.
Right. Yeah. And Pete, we learned that him and his mother kind of ran off, and they never talked to the grandparents. So he's walking in fresh. So a day goes by, and Marius is leaving prison. He's hopping on the you see it all the time, the bus that's leaving. And basically the bus is dropping off every prisoner at the same location, which is like Midtown New York. But Marius, being and this is so smart, this is the con man, this is what I like about the character. He goes to the bussy and he says, my dad had a heart attack. He had a couple, and he doesn't know I was in prison. I haven't seen him in like 3 years, but my brother, I just want to walk and meet him. And, I think if he sees me come out of here, like the fourth one's going to kill him. Like this one will do it. And the bus driver is just like, okay, like, yeah, I'll do this. And he lets him off a couple streets before. And we see when the bus empties, there's two big goons there waiting for Marius, and they're kind of left holding the bag. Like, okay, where is this guy?
Yeah, it's even funnier that the bus driver goes, "Oh, you must be your brothers." And they're like, "What?" Yeah, this is a great scene, and it's him taking advantage of a picture that's up on the bus, like up on your, I guess, mirrors on the bus. And we see this a lot, and we see this actually almost immediately after. This guy is having this conversation at a bar. He's basically talking about hockey, and he says, great Gretzky quote. It's like, you don't pass to where the player is, you pass to where the player's going. And he asks the bartender, he's like, who said that? And Marius picks up on this and gets the hint that this guy's a hockey fan and proceeds to use that to his advantage.
Yeah, so he throws on this horrible French accent.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like it doesn't sounds more like Jersey than but he tells the guy that he's from Montreal and he's trying to get to Albany. And he goes, oh, I can help you get there. And while he's pointing at the map, giving Marius directions, he pickpockets his wallet. He takes his watch off of him. I mean, this guy is such a clear criminal. And he's like, oh, this is how you're gonna get here. This is how you're gonna get here. Okay, great. Yeah, okay. And he has no money. He just got out of jail. So he gives him the directions, tells him where the train station is, and he's like, okay, well, I gotta go. Like, yeah, I better get going. And then Marius on the way out says, hey, the next one's on me, which is with the other guy's money. He buys him.
That's with his own money.
Yeah, it's with his own money. And then he says it was Wayne Gretzky who made the quote when he was leaving. So the other guy's totally in the dark, loves Marius, and yeah, he's away with his wallet and his watch.
Which is funny because he's probably not an hour out of jail, Juggy, and he's already committing crimes.
Yeah.
So you can get this guy's sense of, I don't know, his sense of ethical standards when it comes to just being a normal Samaritan.
Yeah, he doesn't have much. And he basically goes and pawns the watch. He gets the cash, gets a bus ticket, chucks the wallet in the dumpster, and he's off to Albany. And he has a picture of the farm where Pete grew up. So he uses this as his compass, so to speak. And he just knocks on the front door and he's greeted by his long lost grandparents.
Yeah. And immediately they're like, can we help you? But he's like, it's me, it's Pete. And then he automatically, he's trying to make connection. So he says, oh, wasn't there a tree out in that yard? And trying to, kind of get this bond going that he thinks will help with this, obviously as an advantage to him. And yeah, I don't know if they're picking up on it right away. There's a sense that the grandmother always has a sense of like, is this really my grandson? And this is kind of through the first two episodes as we see even more in the second one with what she does. But yeah, right away, I don't think she's committed to the fact that her long lost grandson's returned.
Yeah, or even that she trusts him. Like she's very wary of him, even if he is related to her. She's kind of like, I don't know about this guy because where's he been? He doesn't, he doesn't look all that great after 20 years. So there's this one point where she brings out lemonade, and the grandfather says, "No, he hates lemonade," and he goes, "Yeah, I was just gonna ask for water if you don't mind." And he so clearly didn't know, but he says, yeah, I was hoping for some water. But he's sitting there, he's trying to kind of learn about the family, just sit there and kind of breathe it in. And then his grandmother says, oh, we're inviting all your 18 cousins over for supper. And he's kind of like, great, yeah, that's good news. Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. And his alibi is that he sold insurance. He was an insurance person for quite a while, which is like such a generic job that people oh yeah, I sell insurance. But that's what he's sticking to. And sure enough, his family starts to kind of roll in, and he's got so his mother also had a sister, we find out, and without really knowing, he says, oh, where is she? And we find out that the sister died in a car accident with her husband about 12 years ago, leaving I think she had 3 kids of her own. Am I correct in that, Juggy?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought Carly's
definitely her daughter. I think Julia is the daughter of the grandmother. So I think it might just be Carly, but maybe yeah, it's kind of hard to say because but so yeah, there's this cousin Julia who is around Pete's age, and they kind of grew up together when they were younger, and they have this kind of back and forth of how Pete was pretty shitty to her when they were younger. Carly is 16, and we kind of learned she's kind of like Marius. She's kind of a con herself, and she's she does some nefarious things. So when it comes to this family's values, Julia has a 2-year-old kid out of wedlock. We learn, which was not the greatest thing when it comes to the grandmother, how she's concerned, and there's also they also have another cousin, and we find out that he is a police officer. So that's another little interesting
Yeah,
angle.
he looks thrilled to get that information when he finds out that his cousin's an actual cop.
Yeah, so it's this interesting dynamic where Julia, he's trying to learn and he's trying to be forthcoming and this and that, but from the start, I would say the two people that are the most put off by him are Grandma and Carly, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think we're at this part yet, but there's a scene where he's washing dishes and Carly comes up. He's like, "Is this the scene where we're supposed to, connect and you're supposed to say something about, for something for us to make us bond?" And he's like, "No, like what the hell? Like I'm not about to do that," which is kind of funny. But and like we said, Carly is clearly a pickpocket / thief, which is right up Marius's alleyway. And you're like she said, she doesn't really trust him a whole lot, maybe more in the second episode than in the first. And another funny scene about when they first meet, Taylor kind of gives Pete / Marius this big old hug, and it's like, "Oh, I remember we used to do this and this," and he brings back a memory, and he basically says, "Remember what we did? We made fun of this kid. You do the thing that you used to do." And Marius is kind of like, he's like, he's trying to come up with something. He's like, he cried. So you can clearly tell that they were maybe not the nicest kids growing up, and they maybe did some bad shit.
Yeah, they were definitely the bullies on the playground for sure. And Taylor being a cop, it's not lost on him because he's like, "Yeah, I became a cop like after all I did." And so that's pretty funny as well. So that night, Marius drives back into the city. And well, he actually calls his brother first, and he says, like, where can we meet? And he goes, yeah, we'll see. But Eddie's like, well, where are you right now? And he goes, I'm out of the city. And Eddy about 4 times on the call asks where he is. And it's such a clear tell that he's trying to get his location. And this is he drives in the next day. They kind of say they're going to meet somewhere. Marius is in a cab, and he drives away when he sees Eddy walking with the 2 big behemoths. So clearly Eddy is not really that loyal to Marius, because yes, his life could be on the line here as we learn more about Vince, but he was willing to sell his brother under the river for his own safety.
Yeah, and at this point, we've heard rumblings, but we don't really know what has happened between Vince and why Vince has got such a stronghold on Eddy, and also why he wants Marius dead, for that matter. So all we know is that Marius is in hiding, and obviously he needs cash because Vince needs his $100,000, and we don't know why just yet. Right.
So while in the city, Marius goes to a friend who kind of has this photo booth area, but he's also kind of gives people new identities, and he's kind of a greasy guy, and he does it for free because clearly he owed Marius a favor. It could be a gambling debt or something else, but he gives him this new identity. He's now Pete. Yeah. And he kind of takes it and goes, but upon returning, Grandma offers him a job with the family business, and he'd be working, alongside Julia in the bail bond industry.
I think offers is strong. She basically told him, yeah, well, you don't reject family when they need help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Marius is like, oh, and basically has to take it. Funny scene too, when he's like, he looks at Julia, he's like, oh, where'd you get your finance degree?
Yeah.
Thinking that he worked in bonds and she worked in bonds and stocks. And he's like, oh, you're funny. No,
Yeah.
we work bail bonds.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like you said, we find out that they're a bail bond family, and Marius is just going to up and join. They drive in together, Julia and Marius, and we find out that they have a bigger fish than they seem. Julia is basically lying to her grandmother, saying, "Oh yeah, well we're going to go just make sure that this guy knows his date, this low timer." When in fact they're kind of going after a bigger fish who's out for tax evasion.
Yeah, this guy is they just think at first it's for tax evasion, but this guy is a much bigger player, like you said, and he's got a $20,000 bond. So if they can get him to the trial, that's a huge payday. We learned that the family business is really in shambles. The lights might not be on for much longer. So they they're tracking a criminal, and they decide to go visit his mother. And Marius is like, no, let's work, separately. We'll do it better. I'll go talk to the neighbors. You go talk to the mother. She's talking to the mother. The mother, like a good mother, doesn't give up her son's location. Says, "Oh, I haven't seen him in days." Yada yada yada. We see while they're talking, Marius breaks into the home. He's like creeping around. He eats a couple things off the counter, and he sneaks upstairs, and he gets a computer. And he also he learns that this man Abraham Pruskov is he's his mother's been lying to him. He was here that morning, and he basically tells Julia, yeah, he's not going to come back here. She definitely
Yeah.
just called him, and we'll have to think of a better way to get him out of here.
So basically, from what we can tell already is Marius is using his scummy con personality slash mind to basically benefit benefit their business, because clearly Julie is more by the book. Ask the right people, go check door to door. Marius is going to ask the wrong people, if you want to say so, and the neighbors, stealing stuff. He steals this guy's laptop, Abraham's laptop, because just to get more information off him, I guess. And he's like, oh, we're gonna go to the one place where I know someone like this is a junkie is, and that's the horses, that's the ponies. And they go to the local racetrack, and sure enough, he's there.
Right, and they get there, and Marius gets a look at this guy, and he goes, "Yeah, Julia, this is not a good idea. No, we should just let him go." And she goes, "What do you mean? It's $20,000." He goes, "No, I know him, and he knows me, and this guy's bad news. Like he has another name, Max Marone. This guy kills people. Like he's not just tax evasion. This guy's in business with a lot of bad people. We can't take him down. Just the two of us. Like this is not a good idea."
Yeah, and she's starting. She says, "No, like you're here. You're not going to back away from this. I don't care if you guys know each other. We're doing this together." And Mary says, "Okay, well, I have a plan. This plan, we find out later, benefits himself more than it benefits Julia." And it's basically Julia running after this Abraham guy. First confronts him, then of course he flees. And as he's running, he makes his way down the hall, where we see, we can only presume that Marius is supposed to trip him and that they're supposed to get him together. Marius lets him run right by, and then proceeds to trip Julia, just to make sure she doesn't catch up to him. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I heard only hear one footstep, one set of footsteps. I didn't know that it was going to be you." And right away, I was kind of surprised, but Julia catches on and says, "No, that's BS. You let him go because you knew him."
Right. She basically calls him a pussy, and
Yeah.
she says, "You were too afraid." And Julia's played by Marion Ireland, and I think I like her role in this as well. I think she's very good at it. The way she plays the character, but we see her, she is by the book, but she's also very motivated. Her grandmother has her sneaky ways, but she likes to present the front that she's, very by the book, very, we do things the right way. Julia is, I want to get the payday, because number one, we need it. And I'm desperate. I'll do whatever we have to do to get it. So she's reading Marius, the Riot Act, But he says, no, it's okay. It's okay. There's another way. And she goes, what? And he says, well, okay, he's booking all these flights, and he's booking a flight out to Buffalo right now. Let's go to the airport. He's going to be in a closed environment. We can arrest him there at the gate.
Right. Yeah. And as they get it there and they get to the gate, they got to come up with a plan. And this is where Marius is so effective. He's also like, yeah, he gets to it. She's like, oh, like, I know we don't have any tickets, but we really need to get on that flight. Our grandfather, who has diabetes, that doesn't have his shot, and he could die on that flight if we don't get to him. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. What's his name? And we find out that Abraham's not even on the flight. So basically this lie was all for nothing. And then of course the girl at the front goes, well, what about your grandfather? And he goes, he's got candy. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's like, he'll be fine. He'll live.
Yeah, he goes, he'll live. It's okay. So they say, oh, it's Max Marone. This is his false identity. This is what he's talking about. So Marius is like, well, he's gonna be booking flights the next days. Like, we're not gonna be able to find him. But he says, you know what? I did see something. His mother is being honored at the Hartford nursing function tonight. He's booking all these flights as a runaround so that he can attend this event before fleeing and try to not go to jail while he's still in the city, but still attend this event. So Marius says, okay, this is the perfect location. He's in a finite area. We know he's going to be there. We just got to get ourselves into this private event.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which leads him to go there. He has what are those called, Juggy, when you have
a valet?
A valet. So he has a valet vest on. He goes up to this vehicle and basically says, sorry, like, can't let you go with the cars in front of you. What's your name and your guest name? And we'll make sure you're getting there, no problem. Takes their keys and then proceeds to steal their identities by going in and pretending to be that fairy couple.
First of all, I think this is brilliant.
And it is.
I think this could work. Like, I think we should try it sometime. Like, I don't know what event do we really want to go to? Because what they do, it would work better if you are a couple, like they did it. But I do think it would still work because they go, tickets, please. And he goes, did you bring him? He says to Julia, and she goes, no, you were supposed to bring him. He goes, no, I was taking care of the kids while you were taking a nap. And she goes, oh, like, I was taking a nap. And they're just bickering and they're going at it. And eventually the woman's like, no, you're here. Yeah, you're signed in. It's okay. It's okay.
Just cause a commotion basically until someone has to put out the flames.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it up, Juggy. There's a little bit of a sense that, do you get a sense that Marius is kind of taking a liking to Julia a little bit throughout these 2 episodes?
Yeah.
It's just kind of subtle with the way he looks at her sometimes, but you can definitely tell he does kind of, he's kind of growing to her. I don't know if it's in the sense that because they're supposed to be cousins, in quotation marks, or if because it's more than that.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was a little more because Marius is not the affectionate type when it comes to non-physical relations, we learn. But so they get in there. He goes and talks to Max's mother. He goes, if we can do anything for you, we got a private room upstairs if you want it. She goes, no. She goes, oh, it's okay. Well, we got nice flowers and everything if you want it. And she goes, well, maybe I could check it out. Like, yeah, okay, it'd be nice. And so he brings her upstairs, and then Julia calls Max and says, your mother's had a heart attack. She's up here. He goes up, he walks in this room, and Julia's there with a gun and says, put your hands up, like, you're under arrest.
Yeah, and this is the part where, Max he's got his hands up. He's like, okay. And then all of a sudden, he puts his hands down and he's like, the first one's always the worst.
Mm-hmm.
It really takes a lot to find out if you can pull that trigger for the first time. And as he's saying this, he's kind of walking closer and closer, and we realize that Julia really doesn't have it in her to shoot this guy. And this actor, I guess, I totally forgot to say this, but he's played in The Wire before. He's kind of I wouldn't say an A-list actor, but he's definitely a B-list actor for sure. And he's pretty recognizable as one of the cops in The Wire. Plays a great role. And sure enough, Pete gets a call. I'm gonna mix up his name a lot. Pete Marius. Marius gets a call, and basically it's Julia saying, "Yeah, this guy's got a gun to my head. You have to bring his mother to the kitchen now."
Yeah. So she's babbling on. He's bringing her down to the kitchen, and he kind of doesn't walk in with her. So Max is there with Julia, and he goes, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "They found me, Mom." He goes, "Oh, well, you might have to kill her." And he goes, "What?" He goes, "Well, if she knows this, I'm not saying kill her here, but you might have to, like offer soon." And the mother basically is like, "You can't go back to prison." And Marius turns the tables. He goes in, he grabs one of those big containers that you keep a bunch of food on, the empty plates and with wheels, and he shoves Max into it. He falls to the ground. They're able to get the gun, and the police are alerted, and they kind of get one over on Big Max.
Yeah, and at the entire episode, Pete's really been avoiding his face with this guy because this guy, he thinks that this guy's going to know him and then reveal his true identity, that he's not, Pete Murphy, but in fact, Marius. And finally, when they see each other, the guy gives him a real look, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to say something now and kind of blow this cover that he's made over the last few days. But all he really says is, I'll remember your face. So this guy doesn't even remember really who Pete was, which kind of gives him a little bit of a break. In a sense, it's not going to blow his cover.
Yeah, because he would have been in big trouble, obviously. Yeah. But Julia's happy. She's when they come back and have dinner, they kind of Pete is this is the flashback I mentioned off the top. He has the flashback of the shitty frozen meal with his mother shooting up at the table while he's taking care of them, while him and Eddy are watching TV. But he's kind of just it's a one vulnerability moment where it's not him doing something kind of mean or self-interested, where
he feels like he's actually in a family.
Yeah, he's like, I really appreciate being part of a normal family and having a nice meal. And Carly's like, "What's your idea of normal?" And we kind of see what he was accustomed to, and this is very much this is ideal if you've never had it. People that love each other, that are enjoying each other's company, and it's not surrounded by a dark room full of a junkie mother.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a normal meal, really, you could put it. And he does kind of get carried away. Shortly after this, he's kind of out at the barn, and he gives Eddy another call, and we find out that Eddy has been staying with Vince this whole time, which is why he's been so, he's kind of had his tabs on him, and why he knows what Vince wants. And he's on the phone with him, and then finally Vince takes the phone, and this is our introduction to our main villain, our guy. If he ever gets on the show, you might think that me and Juggy are obsessed with him, Bryan Cranston.
I mean, I
he's what's that?
I mean,
yeah,
for yourself,
quite literally. And he's kind of dabbled up. He looks like he's got a nice whole suit on, and he's basically like, Marius, just tell me where you are. I'm just concerned with my $100,000. I just want to get it. And Marius is like, no, I'm not giving your money. I'm walking. He's like, well, I'm gonna have to put a bullet in your brother's head then. And Marius says, go ahead, I don't care. And Vince goes, no, like I know you do. And if you don't bring me my money in a week, I'm gonna take a finger. The next week, I'm gonna take another finger until basically till he's basically nubs all over.
No fingers left.
Yeah. And this is kind of where the pressure goes. Like, obviously, Marius wants to get his brother out of there, but he's got to find a way to get this cash somehow.
Right. And did it cut you off guard that Cranston was the villain? I didn't think he'd be a main person in the show. That really caught me off guard.
No, I didn't read too much into it. I knew he was a producer, like I mentioned last week, but I didn't know that he was actually going to be acting in it, which is great because he's such a recognizable face, and he plays a great anti-hero in obviously Breaking Bad. So we get to see him play the actual villain in this one.
So yeah, that's kind of how the episode ends. He kind of ends the phone call, and
There's one last scene, I guess I just wanted to mention, and this is kind of playing into what we talked about earlier with the grandmother knowing. The grandmother kind of comes in
oh
to
right.
collect eggs from the barn, and she
Mhm.
goes, like that. We've got a fox, it's Pexy Fox. He's coming in here taking the eggs, just pretending he's somebody that he's not, and kind of gives Marius this look like I might be on to you, and Marius kind of plays it cool and says, "Oh, that's awful."
Yeah.
And you're right. That is how the episode ends. But I thought that scene was important just because you could
Mhm.
tell the grandmother is clearly smarter than she may seem, or she may have seemed earlier.
Yeah, she's very sharp, and she's very aware of her surroundings.
I
And
find out she's very cutthroat in the next episode.
yes, yeah, quite cutthroat. The grandfather, we'll mention him briefly. He wasn't a big part of either episode, but he doesn't work. He had a heart attack, so he's kind of just always around. He's babysitting, but he's definitely the anti to the grandmother. He just believes anything somebody tells him. He's just, oh, it's great. Pete's back. The business is great. Life's awesome when, life isn't that great for anybody in this family.
No, absolutely not.
So yeah, the kind of couple points I had after this episode, Chase, I said, I want to know more about, what he did, which we do learn about, but maybe make you want to keep watching. But I do think there's a bit there that you're like, okay, he went to prison, but how did he get there?
Mhm.
Is Vince clearly didn't seem like a government type. It's not like you rob somebody that would report this to the police. This guy is clearly a criminal. So I also wanted more about the family background with this family in particular, kind of some interesting stuff there, and more info on the family business would have been nice for me as well. Just kind of how they've done this forever. Has Julia worked by herself this whole time and doing this, because it clearly was a challenge with this case, and those are just kind of the couple of things for me that I
Yeah,
had.
left too many questions. It's okay when a premiere leaves some questions. In fact, I like it a little bit better because obviously it keeps you interacting, keeps you engaged.
Right.
But it did seem like there was almost one too many questions from the hop here, and some of them do get answered for that you've referenced into the next episode, but a lot stays remained, especially with the family business, which I also thought was important. We don't really know, like, was Taylor the brother, was he also in the family business, then became a cop? Was
Right.
was the grandfather, was he the guy going around collecting mail bonds? We don't really know a ton, but hopefully throughout the show we'll find out a little bit more.
Right.
Same with why the daughter and Pete left. We don't really. We know they
Yes.
left, and we know they left on bad terms, but we really don't know why they left on bad terms.
Right.
Did something happen, or you know,
And it's
did
kind of left, we don't know if Pete's mother is alive. I mean, you can assume that she kind of is. That's how I mean, it's not talked about openly, but again, he was gone for 20 years. She's been gone for 20. So there's maybe a good chance that she's alive and well as well.
yeah, exactly.
So the second episode starts. I love the way it started, because I think the second episode was really, really good. But it starts with, it's a flashback, and it says 3 years ago, and it's Pete meeting with Vince, and they're kind of just at this little coffee shop deli type place, and Marius is playing cards. He's playing, I believe he's playing, you're the card expert, Shay. Was he playing bridge?
Yeah. The bridge is the game. So instead of playing poker, they're just gonna play that instead. And then you can also gamble, and it's like a partner's game as well.
I've never played it, but it looks fun. Have you played it?
I've never played it either. No. I know versions of it. I've read up on the rules shortly after this, but I actually have never played it myself. It'd
It
be
looked
fun to
beyond
try.
complicated.
What's that?
It looked really complicated to me.
Yeah, it is really complicated. I think it's one of those things you got to practice, and you probably got to play when you're younger to get used to.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and Vince is impressed because he sees Pete and he goes, "Wow, you're really good at this." And but Vince is like, "Yeah, I'm pretty good too." And he goes, "Okay, sure." And Marius not really paying him any attention. He's just kind of blowing him off. And Pete's a very good con. He says, I play poker. I play bridge, play poker sometimes, and I have some pretty good schemes that I can screw people over and get some money. He goes, really? Yeah. He goes, I just need, I need like 100 grand for a poker game and for to set up this event, buy a space. And, me and you, we could really take down some people. And so, and, he kind of buys in. He goes, yeah, like I'm in, he's impressed, but Marius still has to be Marius. He kind of says, I don't know about you. I don't know if I really trust you. And he leaves the building, and Eddy's following him, and he goes, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. He's gonna call. He's gonna call. And he steals Vince's, I'll call him handler, security guard's phone, and he can guess the code because he's wearing a Jim Brown Cleveland Browns uniform, which was number 32, because he also wore 44 in college, Bing. And Vince gives him a call, and he's got his first little, he's got him on the leash to lure him in.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's clearly part of his strategy by, not saying yes right away, but making Vince work for it and making him think, okay, well, this is a guy this is a product I need. So I'm going to have to, put my neck out there and, my pride, more importantly, and, basically call him and beg him to work with me. And we've, Eddy's part of this. Like we said, Eddy's the one who brought Vince to him. So clearly they have a past relationship together. But yeah, it's more about getting Vince connected with Marius for this con. They could keep calling it.
Right. So we snap back to the present, and Pete is kind of like, okay, I got to do something here. So he's in his room, but it's an old farmhouse. So he's trying to sneak out with this old creaky floorboard, and he steps on it, makes a big noise, but he goes outside, and Carly's looking out the window at him as he puts the truck in neutral, starts pushing it so they don't hear him start it, and he kind of leaves the property, and he drives to see Miss Carolina, who he has a pass with.
Yeah, so we see this girl come out of this, this big building, this guarded building, and she's got a handler with her, and she's kind of just relaxing at this little spa, this nice place. And all of a sudden, Pete's over top of her, and she's like, "What the f?" And her handler comes running around the corner, and she's just kind of sitting in the pool naked. She's like, "You like what you see?" And he's like, "Yes, I mean no." And yeah, sure enough, he leaves, and then they kind of have a conversation and realize that they work together and they know each other pretty well.
Yeah, and they even seem like they have a little bit of a sexual tension, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, and she gives him the deets on Eddy. So clearly she's in the know with Vince. And, she says like, yeah, he's got him like under lock and key. Like he's his dealer now. Like, yeah, so it's going to be tough getting Eddy out of there. And he goes, oh shit. So he leaves that place. She says, I'm going to scream if you don't leave in a minute. So he leaves. And he drives to Katie's, and we see her husband leave with their child to go play hockey. And she is a former con as well. She has a gun in her cereal box. So this woman is packed and loaded. But we learn that Marius also has a history with her. He dumped her for Carolina, and basically she goes, "Yeah, you dumped me for the hotter version of me."
Yeah. And the one that spoke a different language, but it's all in the cards for Marius, because it's whatever he needs at that point in time seems to be what he's going for. Carolina is we find out later that she's Polish, so she's from a different country. So at that time he needed someone with an accent, and Marius is kind of just there. He's not coming out right to say it, but he's desperate. He needs help, and he needs help with his parole officer because he's already skipped, because I'm sure if Vince knew he was there, he'd just go kill him. So he's been skipping his parole meetings, and he's kind of going to this Katie to help him out. And then Katie goes, there's a van, a black sedan out there I've never seen before on our street. Do you have someone trailing you? And he goes, maybe, I don't know. This could be Vince, could be somebody else. And he goes, can you do what you did in Portland? And she goes, fuck no. And he goes, please. And we find out that all it really was her walking around naked, and the guy basically watching the place gets a free, nice little free show.
Yeah. So the guy's just like, oh my God, he basically says, he's sitting there watching, and Pete ultimately gets home the next morning. Grandma's like, I heard him sneak off. She's talking to the hubby the next morning. She goes, I heard him sneak out last night. So she opens his door. He's making his bed. To his credit, he cops to it. He says, you know, Grandma, like, I snuck out last night. I went through the window and I took the truck because, I was just going to see a friend of mine, and, I didn't know how to ask, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to be a burden. So I'm sorry I lied to you, and it won't happen again.
Yeah, and to her credit, she says you never have to ask. You just can, you can ask me anytime. You can just take it. Do you think he copped up because he knew that he got caught, or do you think he copped up out of the greatness of his heart?
I think he might have been on to the whip, maybe, Shay, with the guy surveying the place. I don't know if he thought it was his grandmother, but he was gone for a long time. Clearly, he only got in early in the morning, so there might have been somebody that woke up and noticed the truck being gone. I just think it was easy, and it was also a way for him to be nice, be open with the family. But yeah, I did this,
Right.
and I was wrong, but we're still learning each other here. Like, it's been a long time.
It's true. Immediately after this, he kind of asks about the family because he's still learning the family tree and whose kids are what. And he goes, "Oh, there was an attic here that we used to do. Yeah, me and Taylor used to do stuff in. What room is that in?" And she cops up to that. And I didn't really understand why he's asking all these questions, but it seems like he's just kind of formulating a family tree to understand more about the relations going on. And kudos to him for just kind of using information he learned with Pete in jail to kind of get these connections with his grandmother.
Right. So we'll get to we'll lump all the con stuff together because I just find that so interesting. That's the main part of this episode. But yeah. Julie and Pete also they have to go to the Persikov bail hearing. And oddly enough, the guy who is the lawyer for Persikov is the baby daddy of Julia. So she's like, "Hey, you owe me one here. Like, get the deal. We need this 20,000. Like, my grandmother's gonna kill me. Like, get it done." He goes, okay. And Pete even butts in. He goes like, "Hey, I'm cousin Pete. I think you should probably do this because you never know what's gonna happen. Like, this guy's a loose cannon." And like,
you know what he's from, Juggy? He's a Euro Trip.
Yeah, he's Coop.
Yeah, Coop from Euro Trip.
Where I park my car. Yeah, I noticed that too. I said, "Oh, that's funny." And so he goes, "Okay, thanks for the input, cousin Pete." And he ultimately does agree to it. They leave. They're excited. They're hugging. But he comes out and says, didn't go through. Yeah, I mean, I pushed for it, but they fired me as the attorney. And yeah, there's no guarantee. It's not going to happen for you." So yeah. He basically tells him, "Get the hell out of here before I kick you in the balls." And she's left saying, "I gotta go tell grandma that I failed, that I didn't get any money here."
Yeah, and so I mean, the next scene's pretty brutal. The grandmother's basically just ripping into her. First gives her the silent treatment, then proceeds to call her pretty much down to the lowest. And Pete just kind of sits in the background, and he's not saying anything, even though it was his idea originally to kind of extend this trial so that they would gain more money, which clearly it's illegal. And the grandmother's like, "Well, now I have to go handle this myself." And as they're leaving, Julia kind of scolds him, says, "Thanks for your help, Pete. It was your idea, but you didn't say, fuck all when it came to the grilling." And where are they going? We're going to go visit Abraham's mother.
Yeah, they go to see Audrey again, and this is, they try to get her on her side. She goes, "I know what it's like to have kids that just don't live up to your expectations. Like,
right.
One, my great daughter died in a car accident. The other ran away with Pete, but he's back now, fortunately. But then you have Julia, who got 2 babies out of wedlock, which is
I love this line. She said shoved half of Peru up her nose.
Yeah. And Julia's just like sitting there like, yeah, that's me. Yeah. And
True.
she's, I know what it's like to have kids. And this mother's like, are you trying to like put me on your side? Like, this is not gonna work. But we see old Miss Audrey and how she goes, you know, you could do it your way, or you could join our side because, you know, we could just ruin your reputation right now with all your favorite nursing people because you threatened to kill Julia the other night. And if that got leaked, I mean, that I don't think there'd be any more rewards for you. And I don't know, that probably wouldn't be great on your legacy, would it?
Yeah. So
And
she,
it's a threat, but without saying directly, this is what we're going to do.
yeah, it's, it could be holeless or not, but she's right. She kind of says, we'll ruin your reputation. And this is unfortunate because obviously the mother has nothing to do with her son's actions, but clearly just by being there and maybe giving the old hint that to knock off Julia was enough to ruin her. And Audrey, we find out, will use the slightest bit of information against somebody to get what she wants and get her way. And we find out later on that it's her persuasion, we'll call it, was good enough to get Abraham to switch back to their bail company.
Right. So he turns himself in, and he's wanted in other states for murder. So Taylor ultimately arrests him, but he lays another threat. He goes, I remember faces, and you two, if I get out of here, basically you're done.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Yeah.
But this is where I think this is the really interesting part of the episode.
Mhm.
We have another flashback where we learn that Carolina is like you said, the inside woman for Marius. Eddy is the dealer playing bridge. He's very good. They have this guy, they show Vince on camera, this guy that they want to con, and he's dressed, he looks like an arrogant guy, and he looks like a business guy, but again, he's a Marius hire. And he goes, 3 weeks, we let him win big money. But then little by little, he says, I figured out how he wins. He brings his cards over here. He does this over here. We can start, he's cheating his way into winning, but we can do it against him. And, Vince is like, this is brilliant. Like, yeah, let's do it, Marius. Like, let's do it. And he goes, great. But Vince has taken a shine to old Miss Carolina because he, on the way out, officer offers her a ride home and then says, where are you from? And she says Slovenia. And he loves the accent, and he's smitten with her.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what gave it away, but sure enough, a little later we see that Eddy is like, okay, I'm gonna peel out of here. The big con is coming up. And as he's walking through, he gets hassled by a detective. And we later find out that Eddy is basically giving up the con to this detective who we find out works for Vince indirectly.
Yeah. Also, Eddy's a bit of a junkie himself.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, he's like at least an alcoholic. But Marius on the way out says, "Don't go too hard tonight. Like, just keep it calm." He goes, "Yeah, I never do. Whatever." Like we have never heard that one before. But like I said, he spills the beans in a matter of seconds. And the next day, they got the cat that they've hired in there. Carolina's there, and Marius. And in walks the cop, the big bruiser. This guy looks like he's a D-line in the NFL. This huge, huge black man. He's intimidating as hell. And Vince, and he's, oh shit. He goes, "Hey, Marius. Yeah, Eddy spilled the beans to this guy." And Marius like, "You spilled the beans to a guy who isn't even a cop?" He goes, "No, he actually is a cop, but he works for me." And it's kind of, Vince is very like, okay, so you did all this. This is brilliant, Marius. Like, this is really, really good. I mean, your only weakness is your brother. But he asks him how he does it, and he said basically it's going to be a sting. So, there's blanks in the gun, and it works like this, and I'm gonna pretend to shoot him. It's a everybody's up in uproar and I steal your money, basically. And he goes, oh, that's interesting. He goes, can I see that blank? And he fires the gun. I said, see how it sounds a little different compared to a real gun? And he asks the gun from the police officer, and he shoots the hire, the big white fella, in the chest. So see the difference? And he fires the blank one again, then shoots him, killing the man for hire in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, basically learned that Vince is no joke. Even though he wasn't super upset with Marius and how he was going to be set up, he clearly sending a message saying, I'm not that guy. I won't be messed around with again." And he proceeds to go, "Well, there's 3 of you here left, and one of you's got to go." He goes on the spiel about he's a businessman. He can't just let $100,000 go down the drain. And he goes, Eddy, he's like, hey, and Eddy at this point's crying. He's like, I love you. The players love you. You're a great dealer. We're going to let you live. And, probably shitting a brick. He looks to Corlina, you're easy on the eyes. We'll let you live as well.
Yeah.
And then turns to Marius and says, well, that looks like it's down to you. And the cop's kind of walking up to him to take care of him, and Marius has got nothing but a blank gun, but still proceeds to shoot it. And I mean, just because it makes sound doesn't mean it doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we see later on that it's actually kind of done something to his eye, right, Juggy? It's kind of like it's almost like a spark has hit his eye, and it's kind of put a little bit of a stud in it almost.
Yeah, it's like there's like some powder or something in it that gets in his eye, and so it causes enough of diversion for Marius to start running out of the building. He's getting chased by the cop and the big black fella, and he's like, he's dead to rights. They're right on his tail. But what he decides to do is he runs into a bank with the gun with the blanks in it and has a fake robbery. He says, "Get your hands up, like give me the teller." And the guys are at the door, but they're like, shit, like we can't go in there, like we can't get him right now. And basically Marius is arrested for attempted robbery, and he goes to jail for 2 years for this act, and it was ultimately to save his own life.
Yeah, like they were clearly going to kill him. Well, I guess a plot in the show would be if Vince really wanted him dead, well, I'm sure he could have had him killed in prison when you think about it. But
yeah, he does mention that if he killed, I don't know if he was going to kill Marius, because he did say, if I kill you, I'll never get my $100,000 back.
Right.
So I think he was thinking Marius would become a member of his inner circle and potentially con for Vince moving forward until the debt was paid.
Yeah, but obviously Marius thought otherwise, or thought he was going to die. So
right.
It's also kind of known, in between the conversation between Eddy and Marius, that the cop will call, like I believe his name's Weller or something along those lines. He might not be as close with Vince as we think, and Weller might go after Marius on his own for what he did to him into his eye. So he might be on his own agenda, far from Vince's. Who Vince really all he cares about probably is getting his money and then probably killing Marius.
Right. So that's how Marius went to jail. That was something I wanted to see in the first episode. I'm glad we got it here. So he was in jail for choosing to live and saving his own life in a sense.
Yeah.
In present day, Eddy is basically a prisoner of Vince. He is still his dealer. He does have his own freedoms now. He can move around as he pleases, but since Marius has got out, he's basically under lock and key. And he's talking to the big guy, but and this Richard is the big guy, and he says, like, can I go? And he goes like, no, like we got to keep it close. Like Vince might need you. But he runs for the door and he locks it. He goes, shit. But Richard does have one last thing. He's got a new puppy, we'll call him. And this is a ferocious dog by the name of Hush Puppy, which is a great name. And
that's a great name.
Eddie's trying to climb this steel fence, trying to get out of there. But Hush Puppy basically latches onto his leg and he is stopped in his tracks.
Yeah, we see in the next scene his arm is basically torn apart.
Yeah.
He needs a doctor clearly. And, Vince and Richard but kind of just grill Eddie, say, how did you know to run, or how did you know like that you're being held captive? And he won't give him up. And then Richard realizes it was the phone calls that he was receiving from Marius. So
Number. Yeah.
yeah, so Marius was basically sending messages indirectly through Richard to Eddie to get the hell out of there. And they find out this, and they're all like, "Oh, like that's genius!" Like to basically warn him without actually telling him. And automatically he's like, "Well, how did they know Richard was going to be around Eddie so much?" And Vince kind of looks at Carolina and says, "Well, this was definitely you," but doesn't really have enough evidence, so I think they blow that off. But ultimately, they end up breaking Eddie's nose, and he's probably getting stitched up for trying to make his escape, and make it well known that if he tries to escape again, it's going to be probably 10 times worse.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's how that goes. Towards the end of this episode, Julia tells Pete that the family is basically in shit. The business sucks. Taylor is not a good cop, acts, in opposition to the law. So he's not exactly the law-abiding citizen that he presents to the family. Carly has been busted for shoplifting multiple times. Taylor's the only person that knows this. The grandparents don't, so she's not a great person. So he's just kind of like, well, maybe I fit in here in a way, because he's, he's not innocent either. And I think in a way, it was kind of deflating to hear that the business sucks, because he was planning on robbing the safe in the office. That's one of the plans that he has to get Vince's money. But also it's, maybe that I fit in here because there's a bunch of people that screw up, and I've basically screwed up my entire life.
Yeah, it's indirectly a home for him, because even though he's not perfect, well, at least he's not surrounded by perfect people anymore, and he doesn't have to pretend to be either. And we've already seen it. He's kind of developed small relationships with some of the family members, mainly Julia, because he works with her more other than the other ones. But then at the end of this episode, we see that he's kind of formulated a little bit of relationship with Carly. And after he gets off the phone, basically saying, "Oh, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. This family's got no money. Like Vince is gonna kill me any one of these days. I have no way of paying him. I might just get the hell out of here." Carly kind of stops him in his tracks. She's outside the barn smoking a J, and she goes, "Oh, you're leaving, aren't you?" And he goes, "What? I'm not leaving." After he just said he was. And Carly's like, "Well, if you're leaving, take me with you." He's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going into the city." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I always wonder what was in that safe." And she goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, it's just collateral, it's just jewelry and whatever." And she goes, "It's not just collateral. There's like $150,000 in there from a huge bail that they did a few years ago." And this perks his interest. He's smoking the joint. He's like, "Oh, okay, like this. There's a reason to stick around here and maybe get to know this family a little bit better."
Yeah, it's a good little tail end to the episode, because he needs 100 grand. He knows there's at least 100 grand in there, so he could at least free his brother, one would assume, with this money. So yeah, I really enjoyed episode 2 a lot more. I thought there's a lot more information. It was more interesting. I like the way Vince, his character was, and things of that nature. But like you said, Giovanni Ribisi is very good as a con. He plays it well, and I've seen him in a few things, and now he's a con. Obviously, he was in Ted, where he's a different character, weirdo. He was in A Million Ways to Die in the West, where he's very comedic and kind of a loser. I think he has range as an actor. He can play a lot of different roles, and very well.
Yeah. I think we talked about it last week too. This guy's his character in the show could fit right into a Succession episode, because he's just that clever. He's just that smart, that he's on his feet, and he just kind of has that personality that can run with the big dogs, which is how he thinks of himself. Even though he's kind of right now the kind of the lowest of the lowest probably of his life.
Yeah, where do you see this going next week when we talk about the next 2 episodes?
I mean,
you see predictions?
You're right. I mean, you could kind of see where the show's going as we've seen a few episodes, him bonding with the family to ultimately to get the safe code. So that'll be his kind of end goal.
Mhm.
You can also see him doing more bail bonds. He's kind of done one already. You can see him doing maybe more kind of as a way to get closer to Julia, who probably has the safe code. And
Right.
obviously more going on with Vince and Billy and them, not Billy, sorry, Eddie. As that progresses, Vince is going to continuously try and find out where Marius is, and if that means using Eddy or an outside resource to do so, then he probably will. One thing I think we kind of skimmed over before we hit the end, it was true that the tale that was on Vince the first night Vince over Marius the first night he snuck out was in fact the grandmother.
Right.
This guy clearly owes the grandmother a few favors and basically did this. And we find out his name is Sam. He's kind of, I don't know, just a big grumpy guy. And he reveals to the grandmother that Marius is kind of banging a married woman, which I'm sure will come into play into the next few episodes.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting, because he's like, I think he's having sex with this married woman. She goes, oh, that's not good. But clearly he does whatever she says. He might have been a bail bond client like that got away or something, and she's using him as collateral because she basically
Yeah,
says, "You'll stop doing stuff for me when I tell you to stop doing stuff for me." And he's just like,
right.
"Yeah, I'm ready whenever you call me."
Mhm. Yeah. Also noted these episodes are long. They're both an hour long. So if it feels like we've had more to talk about and feel like
Mhm.
we've covered more, it's because just
Yeah.
the length of the full length of the episode. I thought it would be like an hour for the premiere and then cut down to like a usual 45 minutes. But where this is airing on Amazon Prime, there's really no need. It's not like there's any commercials or anything like that being played, right? So makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's a good point because like you said, Yellowstone are all an hour.
Yeah,
I believe
for the
anywhere
most part.
around there, 55 to 57 minutes.
Yeah,
And like so, it's not running on a TV. It wasn't running on AMC, so you don't have to cut it. You don't have to cut your time. So
exactly.
it's gonna be more to cover, but it's good as well because the show you'd think would be better because they don't have to cut anything. There's shows where you have to cut info because you only have a certain amount of time. You can only go 42 minutes and you can't
Right.
go above it because that's how much time you have before in the last 18 or for ads and for, Downy and Tide Pods. So it gives Amazon, it gives you more of an opportunity to provide, I think, a better product.
Yeah, I agree fully.
So two good start to the show. We'll touch on episodes 3 and 4 next week. But this week, Shay, it's double duty for you.
Yeah.
Last week we touched on chatting about some NBA, and tomorrow night, Harrison Schutenbeld of the Great Sports Better, Sports McMula, will join the two of us to talk about some NBA, potentially NFL, amongst other things. So that should be fun tomorrow night.
Yeah, looking forward to, we're in the halfway point of the season, and there's talk about how poorly my Celtics look, and amongst other great topics. So no, I look forward to breaking it down, and even getting the betting perspective from him, because
Mhm.
as much as I listen, I have questions of my own that I'm interested in asking him, kind of throughout our discussion. So no,
Nice.
looking forward to that.
What was your reaction to hearing about Jake Muslin having a concussion earlier today?
Not great. I mean, he's definitely one of the better defensemen on the team. He's probably the most sound defensive defenseman, which isn't great coming out of my lips now that I hear it. But no, it sucks, but just gonna have to rally. And we've been lucky. I thought Liljegren and Sandin have actually had half decent seasons this year. So if we do have to call somebody up, at least they can maybe up their play a little bit to fill in for him.
Yeah, he's had a tough year.
Yeah, I find too.
Maybe getting healthy would be a good thing for him, just to sit out a few games and come back better than ever. But Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night, and we'll talk about some NBA amongst other things. But always great to have these chats Tuesday night, Shay, and enjoy the sports this evening. Anything that you got booked off that you plan on watching?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there'll be something on. Seems like every Leafs game is postponed, so I end up watching something else. But it's good. No, I watch a lot of great NBA, so I'm kind of catching up on that since I know I'm discussing with that with you boys tomorrow.
Sounds good. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate the support as always. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk soon.